Hello, I am Joshua Cowan. I am a history and archaeology major here at WKU, and today I'll be talking to you a little bit about the Chicago Manual of Style. It is a format that is used primarily by historians and archaeologists. It was designed for the humanities, and it's a very simple to use system that's designed to make it as easy as possible to cite other sources and other works to develop your own research or to propose counter arguments to research that's already been done. It's a very academic system of writing. The first thing we'll see here, like any other system, it starts off with an introduction. It's just to lay out the thesis and state the argument, give some background information. This article is looking at how the Chinese look at history in comparison to archaeology. It's part of what I'll be doing as my research for this semester. The biggest and most important thing, like I said, about this style is that it's very useful for citations. Using this for history or archaeology has a lot of need to quote other authors. This, for example, is looking at some of the other work that another author has done to back up the point of the argument. And it's a very simple system. Usually it's just block quotes for anything large like you would normally do. And there's a lot of different ways to cite in Chicago style. There's two main forms. There's the author date style and the notes bibliography style. But there's a lot of variance in these and how you want to do it that makes sense to you. So for example, the author in this one, they've quoted this source by stating the name of the author in the text leading up to it. And then in an in-text quotation, they've put the date. So they're using the author date system. And then in this one, they've also put the page numbers from 37 to 38. And this is one method of quoting that it's just very simple. This is just one method of doing it. Another method is to put the author's name and then the date and not have the page numbers. That's entirely optional. Additionally, if the author was using the notes bibliography style, as is more popular among the history profession, this would simply be a footnote. It'd just be a small number here, and at the bottom of the page, that number would correspond to a quotation. And in this as well, there's a lot of different variation you can do. Some authors prefer to put the entire quote for the first time that they use a quotation. They'll put the full citation at the bottom. Other authors prefer just to use a short citation of usually the author's last name, maybe the name of the text, and the page number they got it off of. But usually, if you cite the full citation the first time you use it, you're free to shortcut the rest of the times you quote that work. If you do not cite the full citation, you are encouraged to add a bibliography or a endnotes page that gives the full citation to avoid plagiarism. In a lot of works, and here's an example of the shortened citations. This a little blocked out, but in this case, he just has the 1963, and that's all he's put there. And this is referencing back to the same argument that he quoted here with Arthur F. Wright. So just shortened citations. Additionally, another piece of information, while not required for the field, it does help to have section headings under most situations. The history field doesn't use it quite so often as the archaeology field does, as we move through a lot of data very quickly, and it gets confusing if not separated into its own field or area of the paper. So this is optional, but it is just something that makes papers look a lot better. Another thing that's supported is the use of images and charts. These are both put into Chicago papers specifically for archaeology for the most part, or when historians are referencing archaeologists' work, as it allows you to directly show the reader without necessarily having to bombard them with information, things that you want to mark, things that you want them to notice about pieces of history or pieces of artifacts that are found. And additionally to images, we also have charts for data in the archaeology field. Archaeology runs a slightly altered version of Chicago that it's more useful for the information that they put forward. And this all looks very complicated, but in the sense it was written for professionals in the field. It's just marking down different styles of these pots that have been dug up. So it's a very simple system, while the data itself might be a bit complicated to look at. And that's really the major point of Chicago, is just to be able to utilize quotations, utilize other authors' work, and just put your information on a page very simply in very clear terms. Like, for example, we don't use cover pages or anything. While some authors may choose to use them, they're not required by the style. It's simply to make the paper look better if you wish to add that sort of thing to it. As I said earlier, this author is using the notes bibliography section, or I should say he's using the author date, but he's added a bibliography as well. There's a lot of crossover between author date and notes bibliography. Again, a lot of it just depends on your personal preferences as a writer. As we see, he's got all of the references are listed as references. They're not listed as notes or bibliography. And they're just in alphabetical order. A lot of times the papers will have abstracts, so that's also not required for the field. Usually in journal articles, you'll find it at the bottom of the page. And then in the heading if you were actually searching for the article. Thank you.